All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I changed. My name is Lisa Berger. I'm Executive Director for Independent Arts and Media. We are essentially the host organization of the Dandelion Arts Finance Training Program. I've been with the organization for over 10 years. It's been a fun journey bringing Dandelion to all of you. Sabereh, why don't you just give a quick introduction for yourself?
Hi, my name is Sabereh Kashi. I'm an independent filmmaker and cultural strategist. And I joined Dandelion as a cohort member, actually just right after the pandemic. And then I kind of continued with the cohort and stayed in the program. And now I am one of the people who is facilitating the cohort, and I'm also behind, designing the cohort and the selection process.
All right. So, what is Dandelion? We're going to start with that. So, the Dandelion Arts Finance Training Program is a multifaceted educational program that is meant to help demystify finance within arts and cultural programming, organizations, practitioners. And in order to do this, we are launching essentially two major components of the initial program. One is going to be an online library and resource hub that will be online later this year. It'll be free for all, and it'll just have a whole host of resources for people to have open access with regard to arts finance resources. The second component, which is what we're here to discuss today, is the regeneration cohort. As Sabre mentioned, she was part of the original cohort that we essentially were test driving how we wanted this program to work. Based on that, the final design of the program was created, and that is what we are launching now. I will say that the Dandelion program, the full program, we originally started it in 2018 with a very comprehensive research and development phase, generously funded by the Zellerbach Family Foundation. We did the several years of research with focus groups, one-on-one conversations, surveys, just to get as much information about people's experiences with finance in the arts world. And we specifically were looking at or looking to engage people from marginalized communities who didn't have positive experiences or access to financial resources. Really looking to see like why was that? What were their experiences? What are some access issues? And to try and address as much of these as possible with whatever programming was launched down the road. So that's basically where we are now. This is the regeneration cohort. Um, Sabre, you want to take over from here and explain what the cohort is?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of regeneration, like that term, just came from the concept of what dandelion is and why is it called dandelion, which actually, by the way, was named by Jerica Seinak, who she came with the concept of dandelion. So it's about like how dandelion actually for reproducing doesn't need cross pollination. It actually does identical. It makes identical seeds, and also by rerouting. So it's a very resilient and independent plant. Doesn't need a lot of care. It can actually reproduce and just come in different places. And I think the whole idea was how can this be a financial training system that is actually helping the marginalized and underrepresented artists to actually come up with the way that they can be resilient in a environment, that is pretty much hostile in a way, actually, to independent artists. So financially, so that's the whole idea. And so when I came to the program, I came to the facilitators, Jason and Crystal, that they were at the time they were facilitating the cohort, and I joined, and it's been a great journey. It's been a ride, and it's so much about regenerating and creating and come up with new concepts and what is our shared experiences of living and surviving and thriving in the system, in the capitalist system, and how can we actually share those experiences with each other, and come up with projects that can help each other to survive and thrive.
So just a bit more about the cohort structure and timeline for everybody. I am going to put a link in the chat to the Indie Arts website where you can read the full details of the cohort of the program. The history of Dandelion is there as well. You could read about all the amazing people that have been involved in the past in developing this. Essentially, the cohort is going to be 4 participants total, and the program will start in October. There will be a mandatory orientation session and then 6 group cohort sessions from starting October 31st through the middle of March. You will also be invited to one-on-one sessions with the facilitators, Josie Santiago, Sabereh, and Mason J. Um, and the idea is that each participant will come to the cohort with an idea for a project, and we'll get into that in a bit more. And participating in the cohort will help to develop this idea, this project, and provide a collaborative experience in developing it. And the focus of the project really should be something related to arts finance in some way, but that's a very broad concept. Again, we'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, so it's 8-month program, October to March. And then after all those different sessions, you will have opportunities to present the project that you have developed to the cohort, to the general public. And during that time, you will be paid a total stipend of $3,000, which will split into 3 payments during the course of the program. And that's that's the core of it. Again, the application is on the website link. More information about the cohort and the timeline and the deliverables are also there. And so what is the proposal we're looking for? So when you look at the application, um, Sabri, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is that we are going to select do a short list of the people who are selected, and then we're going to have interviews, and then the 4 people will be selected. But it's really like we're also going top part of the cohort is that we're going to present the workshops that were created during the previous cohort. There is a workshop that I created. It's about reimagining getting paid. And it talks about like the value of labor that we put in. And also Mason had a workshop developed about creating a board that is an ethical board for a nonprofit that is based on project values, key stakeholders, and community needs. So these workshops will be presented to the cohort, and as like a way to understand like how we actually what did we achieve through the previous cohort, and sort of help with the projects that you're developing through the cohort. And these workshops is going to be open, so everybody who is here and other people can also join to be part of the workshop. So it's almost like the whole idea of Dandelion is really starting to build a community. So whether you are part of the 4 people who are selected or not, you can be part of the Dandelion community. And the whole idea is that we want to build community resistance and resilience. And so this cohort happens to be like specifically for developing a project, but it's actually much bigger and larger than that.
Thank you. So yeah, so just to go a little bit more into the application and the project ideas that we're talking about. I mean, Sabereh just gave 2 wonderful examples. So when she participated in the original cohort, the project that she developed was this workshop series. Mason also developed a workshop as part of his cohort. And so workshop is one example of the type of project you could develop. So I'm going to do a screen share of the Dandelion website that we linked to. So here we are. So looking at the eligibility criteria for the program. So you have to be a Bay Area resident, and we're defining that as the 7 primary counties. So Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Solano counties. And you need to self-identify as an artist, cultural worker, culture bearer, or community rooted creative. Um, this is not an assessment of your artistic skill. I just want to be clear. The application does ask you for some samples of your art. We are not judging your art. We are just looking to confirm that you are, in fact, self-identifying as an artist. And that's a very broad concept. Um, to apply, there's the online application form. Deadline is September 15th. As Sabereh mentioned, once we have the final applications, we will weed it down to 8 people, and those people will be invited to interviews for the final determination later in the month, early October. The announcements will be made of who the final 4 are. Now, for the proposal, we very much ask for what is your project idea? We want to know how are you going to spend your time in the cohort developing a concept related to arts finance. And as it says here, applicants must propose a project aligned with the themes above, which are basically the themes that Sabereh has been talking about through this conversation about financial resistance, resilience, community-driven support. Um, so propose a project which will then be developed throughout your cohort participation. Possible formats, and this is just to give you some ideas. Could be a workshop. It could be an interactive presentation. I mean, a somatic or spiritual offering, and any other creative format. What we love about working within the artist community is that we don't want to just pigeonhole people to one format. Like it doesn't have to be a workshop. It could be something else. It could be a lecture series. It could be a performance, just something that is within the themes of the Dandelion program.
And I can actually talk more about that for a minute. So some of the themes that we have come up with is like, and I just encourage you to think about these themes and just think about like how can you use these themes to come up with a project that can just be like a creative expression, but based on lived experiences that you have, or it could just be some ideas that you have, but it's also related to something that you have really been thinking about, you have been really has been part of your experience as an artist, as a creative person, you know, and how that can be manifested through through some type of creative expression or educational module, like a workshop, or it could be like a somatic offering, you know. So some of the themes could be mapping financial lineage and rewriting money stories, because we all come from, you know, like a financial lineage that comes from, you know, our parents, our grandparents, and we all have dealt with finance in our history, and that is informing who we are. So how do we deal with that lineage could be part of the project that you're offering. It could be about designing value-aligned compensation models, like thinking about like developing a solidarity-based pay structure or funding plan rooted in equity, reciprocity, and access. So again, this is like a large theme, but it could be that you might have either ideas about that or having experiences with that. And how does that manifest in a project that you want to develop through the cohort? It could be about connecting money, power, and value, because, as you know, these are very like interconnected, and it's also connected who gets paid, why we're getting paid. How can those dynamics be shifted and be more just, you know? So that could be a theme for a project. It could be about healing financial relationships, you know, like knowing that, I mean, earlier I talked about like, you know, ancestral traumas, or actually it's not necessarily just ancestral traumas. We also get a lot of resilience, a lot of survival help from our ancestors. So, but there is also, usually there is some healing that we need to do with some of the traumas that we are carrying around money. So how do we like address the emotional, spiritual, and safety related dimensions of money? And how do we learn to regulate scarcity driven responses and build financial stability? So this could be another project. There is this idea of composting capitalism. You know, like I know that capitalism, we always have think about capitalism in a very evil, bad thing. But what if we can compost and bring some nutrients to actually create like like nutrient for community well-being, and using that as a tool, use money as a tool for, you know, for thriving rather than for like exploitation. And then challenging ableist economic models. And, you know, like I know that people who are doing, you know, disability justice and are familiar with it, we all know how much there is disability caused by capitalism, especially in this country. You know, I'm an immigrant. I know that the type of disability that we see here is just because of really exploiting us, exploiting people, you know, the livelihood of people, to just constantly going through this merit-based like productivity and like ableism in terms of like always going for efficiency, always going for competition, and how it's just actually draining us from our resources. So how do we challenge that? You know, we're still we are still living in this system, you know, like, and we still want to be able to, you know, to survive. So how do we challenge that and continue to do the work, the important work that we do? And then, and how can we make us space for access and flexibility? Again, some people may have experiences already with this, and we want to see how that can be an expression, and like again, a workshop, a presentation, a somatic exercise, things that you already have experience with, and you want to, you know, package it through something that can be actually offered to everybody.
Yeah. And I would say like a lot of the themes and the concepts that Sabereh are talking about are really heavy and really intense and big subjects. And we just also want to make it clear that this is not like PhD level thesis or concepts that we're looking for. It's based more on like what are ideas that you've been thinking about, your personal experiences. What are if you come from like a specific community, what are the barriers you've all been, what all you've been experiencing? What is something that's coming out of that that is coming out of that you would like to explore as like maybe your project is to develop a concept, develop something to help reduce some of those barriers. So yeah, I mean, it could be, I mean, I just want to say like it could be something as simple as restructuring how to view financial accounting from the perspectives of your unique cultural community, because not everyone comes from a perspective of like, I mean, let's just say it like most of the financial systems that we all have to work in, especially when they're coming from funders and nonprofit institutions, are very based in colonialism and uh, discrimination, and maybe you just approach it from a different perspective. And what you want to make your project is how do you bridge those two concepts of like, yes, I acknowledge I need to work within this colonial funder-based system that needs financial reports in a certain way. But I come from this perspective that is completely different. And this is how I've learned to bridge those so I can still access those funds, access those resources, but not jeopardize my cultural perspective of where my community and my work and my practice is coming from. So, I mean, it doesn't need to be, yeah. So there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of potential of what these projects can be. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, as Lisa said, these are like very like big concepts. And that's like, if you think about Dandelion, it could be just, that's just a little bit of it, but it's really about like the resiliency and about the lived experiences, and sharing those experiences and building community around it, because that's really our resilience. Like by building the community, by sharing our experiences, that's the way we can actually, like counter this bigger systems of, capitalist systems that we are living in. So finally, I'm just going to talk about two other teams. Like the other team is about educating funders and supporters, because there are actually a lot of funders who actually would like to help, they're allies. And but how can they actually participate in a way, help us in the way they invest in the community, they invest in art, in culture, like the relational accountability practices that we want to teach them. So just really thinking about like, how can we teach them? How can we educate them about how to fund our art and culture or our communities? And then it could be projects that about mutual aid, about community building, about sharing resources in a way that resists hierarchy. Yeah, and what type of culture do we want to create amongst ourselves when we are making these mutual aid projects?
Oh.
So yeah, so these are the teams that I have, and yeah, we could.
Yeah.
I mean,
And by the time the cohort is done, so the cohort is providing a mechanism to develop these ideas, develop these projects. And again, part of the deliverables at the end is you'll have two opportunities to present them to the other cohort members, the Dandelion community, the general community. Um, and then we will also take a packaged version of your project and it will go into the Dandelion library. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the other component of the Dandelion Arts Finance Training Program is, well, one is the cohort and the other is the online library and resource hub. And so we would like to be able to package a version of your project for the library to basically be another book in the library collection. Um, and we'll go into more in detail with that for the people who are selected, but we also just want to acknowledge, like, we're not going to, if you develop a comprehensive workshop series that you present as part of the cohort, we're not necessarily going to record that and put it for free up on the library for everyone just to be able to use that. Part of the acknowledgement of the Dandelion is the professional self-sufficiency of all of us in our community. And so maybe the version that you want to put up on the website is maybe just like the general slideshow from the presentation, or maybe just an abstract describing the presentation. And for those who want to contact you to hire you to go and teach the workshop for their community or develop some sort of like cross programming, you'll be a resource within the library for people to draw upon with related to your project. We'll get into that more for people who are selected for the cohort, but it's a great opportunity to be able to take what you've developed here and make it available to people in the public. Um, I think we'll just do a quick review of the application itself. So this is the application. Can everybody see it? Sabereh, can you see the actual Google form?
yes.
Great. So this is the Google form. It's linked on the website. It was also in the email notification that went out. Again, it includes the schedule, overview of the deadline of September 15th. Interviews will happen late September. The final cohort will be announced by our goal is September 30th in order to have the orientation on October 14th and the cohort session starting on October 31st. These are mandatory. So one thing to think about when going into the application is if you can't make these Tuesdays and Friday meetings, don't apply because they are mandatory. I mean, if there's like one that you can't go to for some specific reason, there is a place in the application where you could put that, but attendance is really important for this program. We ask for your general contact information, just confirming you're a Bay resident. If you're selected, we will ask you for proof of that. We're not asking for it up front, but we will ask for just something more general. If that's a potential issue for you, there is a let's discuss box option. Um, Confirmation that you can attend the cohort sessions and the mandatory orientation. General question, are you an artist, cultural worker, culture bearer, or community creative? Yes or no? Work samples. These are very flexible. Again, we are not assessing the quality of your art. We are just confirming that you are, in fact, self-identifying as an artist. There's no question of whether you're a professional artist or anything like that either. It's just, again, self-identifying. Now, then these are the more substantive questions related to the themes of the program. And the questions are, what's your current relationship with money? Why are you interested in participating in the Dandelion Regeneration Cohort? And then briefly describe your project that you will develop as part of the cohort. So, and the two main questions to look at are, or themes, surviving and thriving as a creative in today's financial system and/or changing or improving the systems for creatives. And then we just ask for some biographical information, your short bio, your CV, your resume, whether you have any access needs for the program. We want to make this as inclusive as possible for everyone. And then what is your preferred method of being contacted? We do ask for your phone and your email in the application. So just letting us know if you do have a preference of one over the other, just let us know. You have the option of getting a copy of your responses, and that's the application. So I think at this time, we're at right about 10:30, which is we're right on time. For those who are here, if you have any questions, this is a great time for that. So if you either want to raise your hand, go off camera, the floor is yours. No one has questions. This is exciting. We must have been that clear.
Put your questions in the chat.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, that would be the other option if you want to put your questions in the chat. I mean, if questions come to you later when you're working on your proposal, you're also welcome to email dandelion@artsandmedia.net. Someone from one of the facilitators, likely Sabereh or Mason, will get back to you. There's the email. It's also on the website. So yeah, that's the Dandelion Regeneration Cohort. How big will the cohort be? So we are choosing 4 participants in this round. We hope that there will be subsequent cohorts. It will depend on future funding. So right now, our funders, because we're all about transparency, are Zellerbach Family Foundation, the San Francisco Arts Commission, and Grants for the Arts. The Haas Fund has been a funder in the past, but they're not currently. The future of the program is based on fundraising. That's always what it comes down to in the nonprofit world. We have committed funding, obviously, for this round and the launch of the library. Our hope is just to keep it going. That is ultimately our goal, is to have this keeping it moving in the future.
Yeah, actually, with the previous cohort, we did have a presentation for some funders, and that was very successful, and that's how we got the funding for this cohort. So I think that's really part of the things that we are is part of, like, that was one of the themes that we want to actually explore in this cohort of how do you actually bring your reality to funders so they will be able to, come back and fund you for the project. So yeah, it's up to us pretty much, up to the cohort to raise the money for the next one.
Question from Dana. Do the applicants need to have work authorization to be a part of the cohort? Um, the cohort participants will be paid as 1099 contractors. So not knowing what your legal status is, we do need to be able to have a W-9 form completed with a taxpayer ID number so we can at least issue the 1099 at the end of the program. Is the program only for individual independent artists, or could it be done from a small nonprofit team? The cohort is designed for one person. It's not, if you are selected, it's just one person. If you, thematically, the part of the point of Dandelion is to bring back what you learned to your community. So one person from your organization, for example, could be the cohort participant, and then the structure of the program, what you've learned in developing projects, you are absolutely welcome to take that back to your organization. It's that is like the visual of the dandelion is you blow on it and all the little poofs go out into the universe. So you could be one of those poofs taking the knowledge back to your team. But the cohort is for an individual person to apply, not a team. Um,
Actually, I was going to just to add something to that. I think especially, I think we want the nonprofit to be actually involved in some type of creative project or working with art and culture. But it's okay to be actually part of the nonprofit, like administration, because that also brings back to the area of art and culture.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a wonderful perspective on that, Sabereh. So when answering, if you yourself are like an arts administrator, like me, I'm an arts administrator. I'm a fangirl. I am not an artist. But if I was filling this out, I could basically say, yes, I'm an artist because I work for an arts and culture organization, and that is your connection to the arts and culture world. That is, yeah, that would be one way of approaching that. Um, Next question is, can an indie media maker be considered an artist? Absolutely. And I think we need to clarify that on the webpage. Sabereh, what is your art form?
Yeah, that's who I am. You know, actually, making media arts could also be part of the or part of your project. You know, like I mean, of course, like I'm a documentary filmmaker. You know, making a documentary film takes a lot of effort and time, so you cannot develop it through like a, you know, just a few months. But if it's something that is shorter and it's doable, you know, in the within the cohort time, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
I'm adding media makers to our list of artistic definition because that's a really important thing to acknowledge. Thank you for asking that question. Are there any other questions? Oh, wait, here we go. Cover this. Will it be in person? If so, where will it take place? So all of the cohort sessions will be on Zoom. The mandatory orientation and the cohort sessions will all be on Zoom. Um, Sorry, I don't know if maybe like the one-on-ones could potentially be in person or I mean, you do need to be Bay Area, so everyone will be geographically relatively close. But for scheduling purposes and just access to the sessions, those will be on Zoom.
Yeah, the one-on-ones could be in person. We do have three one-on-ones with each of the facilitators, which is myself, Mason, and Josie. And these one-on-ones are designed to help you with, you know, shaping your projects. So yeah, those can be happening in person. And also, if somebody comes up with a project that requires to be in person, like let's say if it's a somatic session that you want to do with people and it's an in-person project, we can talk about it and see how that can actually be manifested.
Mhm. Yeah, we would provide, so the stipend is meant to cover your time. There is no separate production budget to cover the costs of your project and presentation. So like if you were to want to do like a media creation, you would need to cover the cost of that. I mean, you could use your stipend to cover the cost of that, but there's not going to be like a separate budget. But if you need to do something in person to present your project, like um, you want a physical space in order to do like a Q&A session or to workshop in person if you needed a space to do a screening of your presentation of like the media creation. We will help facilitate finding a venue for that. If you're doing something like on a larger scale, like a performance, we don't have the budget to go and rent out a space and do a whole production. you would probably need to figure that out yourself. But again, these are kind of like the details of, I mean, these are some of the details to think about when drafting what you think your project will be and how you think you would make it happen. Um, and there would be a balance between what resources we could help support with versus just the reality of our budget. If you want to email questions about that in advance, feel free to email us those questions as well. We can kind of maybe think it through a bit more with you.
And it could also be that through your community, you have some resources that you could use for, like your performance space or, so that's okay. You can put that in your application.
Mhm. This goes to Destiny's question. She also had something similar of whether the stipend is for developing the project. I mean, the idea of the stipend is to pay for your participation in the program, and the program is intended to help you create your project. But again, it's not meant to be like a performance budget or production budget. It's just you will get $3,000 during the course of the program. How you choose to spend that, whether on just your day-to-day living expenses or something related to your project, is up to you. Can vending and sharing information about Dandelion be a way to bring it back to the community as well as doing workshops? I'm not sure I understand that question. Arya, do you want to kind of elaborate what you mean by that? I mean, you can go off mute.
Okay, so what I meant was like I had wrote on my like application that I had this idea, like this new business idea, but like I haven't fully like planned it out, but like I guess like what I was thinking was like selling what I wanted to create. But then I also, now that I'm thinking about it, like now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, I guess I could also like do a workshop with what I was hoping to create and then like have everyone else also creating that thing with me. But yeah, that's what I meant. Like if I was like vending like in a community space, like maybe like Dolores or like Lake Mary, and then like I was sharing information about Dandelion to like, bring together community and let them know like about this program that I'm in that's supporting me like while I'm doing this, then like could that be like a good way of like bringing it back to the community?
I mean, I think for developing well, one, we always welcome you bringing the ideas of Dandelion back to your community. The more it's knowledge about it is spread, the better. But I think for developing your project, I mean, if you are thinking of like developing workshops related to monetizing your practice, I mean, that would definitely be a potential project idea. It sounds like you may have already submitted the application form. If you want to revisit that and resubmit a new one after, now that you've kind of been through this information session, that's totally fine. If we see a later submission by you, we'll make sure to take that one into consideration. Because I know it's
Okay.
the idea of the project is a bit of a lofty concept. So I think you may evolve your thinking now that you have some time. And again, you have until September 15th. There's no prioritization given to people who apply early. Um, Next question, speaking of the stipend, will it be split halfway through the program or given earlier at the end? It's split in three payments. One in late fall, I think November, after you've attended at least two sessions, one around February, and then one at the end of the session. The schedule and the deliverables, like the what meeting requirements are required, are all on the website if you go take a look at that. You're welcome, Destiny. Glad you made it. Any other questions? All right, well, wonderful. Thank you everyone for attending today. Again, if more questions come up, you can email us at dandelion@artsandmedia.net. There's more information on the website about more of like the programming themes. We look forward to seeing submissions from all of you, if at least as many of you as possible. Have a
Yeah, thank you so much for attending the Q&A and your great questions. I see that there is some ideas already, coming, and I hope you got inspired to come up, with a project. And again, the more it's about your lived experience and or what you want to create with your lived experience, with your practice, the better. Yeah, we're looking forward to see your applications, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
All right, have a great rest of your day, everyone.